Welcome to the Numbers Game, the show where analytics meets the action and data drives the decisions. I'm Cynthia Frelund, and the NFL Draft is Thursday, April 24th from Green Bay. In the next 25-ish minutes, here's how we'll break down the beginnings of the first two rounds of the draft. First, I'll give you my notes on my top 4 quarterbacks. Everyone needs to know about quarterbacks, so we have to cover it. Then you'll have their data profiles for your own scouting report. Next, I'm going to give you my 5 favorite day one players who aren't quarterbacks and a note or two on why I like them. Then we will make a list of action items for Thursday because playing along, that is our jam on this show. And then we'll round it out with 5 notes for Friday. Extra Friday focused this year because after all of my studying, I think that day 2, so rounds 2 and 3, they are really important in this draft. That's where the concentration of the players who have, like, it fits better here, doesn't fit as well here. That's the glut of where the good players are. And that's where teams can get their best return on draft equity this season. And by the way, I looked at like other seasons too, and day 2, so rounds 2 and 3, this is a big one for this specific season, like maybe the best one we've seen in a while. You can check out my top 128 players. So my big board, it is ranked 1 to 128. Quarterbacks don't get to go at the top just because they're quarterbacks. It is Travis Hunter's number 1 on it, just so you know, spoiler alert. But I'll link it to my socials. And as the draft goes on, I'm very fortunate to be heading to Green Bay. It's going to be awesome. So I'm going to post as much of the stats that you want to know as players get drafted, how the fit works with whichever team they're going to, and maybe some behind the scenes stuff that's pretty cool too. So follow along as the draft unfolds and we'll experience it together. Now, I've also in this episode done something that I don't usually do, which I talk to coaches and front office executives and all of these people making decisions, scouts, etc. And in this episode, I added a few of their notes in where it made sense because I want you to know the stuff that I'm getting to know. We don't do a combine for fit. Maybe we should. I understand they're doing interviews there, but ultimately anything I can do to add a little bit more color, I've added it to this episode. The implied odds, according to sportsbooks, of the Titans taking Cam Ward with the first overall pick as of right now are set at 99.5%. So that sounds like a really great place to start. Cam Ward from Miami has a lot of NCAA experience. He played 57 games and he's coming off of a season last season where he threw 39 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. If you look at the PFF data, you will see he had the highest middle of the field accuracy in all of college football last season. And he ranked 7th in FBS on accuracy on passes attempted in 3 or more seconds. So that starts to speak to some of the computer vision notes. And the computer vision note says he's good at working outside of structure, and it helps forecast for him not taking unnecessary sacks at the NFL level. I also have some analytics friends in the league who measure things like how much a quarterback's head moves when the ball is snapped, pre-snap. It's different times between when the ball is snapped and then when the ball is released. And they also measure certain other micro and macro expressions. They try to figure out what is associated with discomfort. So what's going to make a quarterback uncomfortable when pressure's coming, when it's not, etc. And Cam Ward has a very, very low discomfort rating, or you can say he's very comfortable even when he's under pressure. Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, who happens to be one of the most polarizing prospects I can remember from the standpoint of the confluence of media and football players and where everyone in the world thinks he's going to be drafted. Anyways, when you look at the data says here in PFF's 3rd highest accuracy, 4th best deep passing, and 5th lowest uncatchable ball grade in FBS last season. So let's talk about the last one specifically, the uncatchable ball one, because that one helps project pro results. I looked at 8 seasons of data and college quarterbacks who throw a low percentage of uncatchable balls and rate well in turnover avoidance. So Sanders, he actually ranked 2nd best at this in the quarterback class, despite being under the most pressure. Well, they become NFL quarterbacks who have a low turnover rate and lead to offenses scoring about 2.5 more points per game. That's a lot of work just to say they're going to be better and score more points. I'll post all of those top 128 players, like I said, but Sanders is number 25. Just so you know, Ward is 11. Ranking number 54 on my big board is Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. He also ranks among the best in the class in terms of middle of the field accuracy. If you narrow down throws between 5 and 25 yards, so just looking at that range, his accuracy was the best of this season's quarterback prospects. Now, clean pocket results, let's talk about them. Why? Because they're a good proxy for kind of the best results a quarterback can have. Why? They happen under ideal circumstances. And when you look at Dart, he had PFF's second highest grade from a clean pocket, and that was in all of FBS last year. When his first read is open, his touch is on point. Adjusting to the second or third options, that will be the question that all of the scouts and the front office execs and coach will have to figure out, because that is a question in his resume, along with passing when off platform, especially deep passes off platform. Tyler Shuck from Louisville is my fourth rated quarterback, and he comes in at number 68 on my big board. Now, this guy has the ideal height and weight combo. The scouts, when they say things like, this guy looks like a quarterback, they are talking about Tyler Shuck. He's 6'5", 219, and while his film doesn't necessarily suggest that he's a dual threat quarterback, he did run the 40 in 4.64 with a 1.61 10-yard split. It's pretty speedy, and it does help add context to the few times that he did use his legs to avert trouble, and how that scrambling, it could be an asset at the next level. Now, he's got a quick release and high velocity readings per computer vision, and by the way, he only threw 6 interceptions last season. Some scouts will point to his age as a source of concern. He's 25 years old, and some people believe that you can't rehab bad habits, etc. Shuck had a great last season at Louisville. He was injured prior to that, and this one's just going to be a belief of a system, a belief of a team, if they can figure out a way to use his talents, and his arm strength specifically is a massive talent. And nobody at the quarterback position did a better job improving their stock than Tyler Shuck. And don't just take it from me, it's not my opinion. I actually spoke to 3 separate head coaches since Indianapolis, and they all said the same thing. Those are my top 4 scouting reports at the quarterback position. So now let's find some value for Thursday. Cam Ward going number 1 feels like a pretty foregone conclusion, and I think we add 2 more quarterbacks in that first round. So 3 total quarterbacks to be drafted in round 1. Let's track that. The second thing that I think is interesting is finding the value in pairing the probability of Shedeur Sanders to be the second quarterback taken, and then also in the top 10. Pair those 2 things together. Now, if you want a little bit more risk, you could be specific and choose the Saints in terms of the team. That's a higher return on investment, but a little bit more risk. Remember, the Saints are picking 9th. It feels weird to move on and talk about my 5 favorite players without first mentioning the rest of the chalky 4. So Cam Ward, chalky. I've also talked a lot about Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Jeanty, all of whom I really, really like, but I want to add a little bit more context and depth here. So let's just do some quick notes on them, and then we can move on. You've already gotten your award notes. This class is super well documented as being a defensive line juggernaut. We're talking edges. We're talking defensive tackles. This could be a class where we get some historical numbers of guys in the future who just have insane careers. And leading that charge out of Penn State is Abdul Carter. By the way, his burst is comparable to Myles Garrett. Now, that is saying a ton, because I think in pretty much every episode of Numbers Game this season, I talked about how Garrett is consistently having this burst under 0.7 seconds. It's just an insane number. So just an awesome comparison for Abdul Carter. Now, Travis Hunter, he just happens to be my number 1 overall ranked player in this class. His body control rating among receivers and corners, oh yeah, he's both in both metrics. Body control is position specific, and so for him, he's highest in both categories. Think of body control here as a measure of maintaining speed while avoiding contact, changing your hip direction, tracking the ball, and also speed while withstanding contact. Ashton Jeanty also paces a running back class that is the deepest that I have ever tracked. Jeanty, he's drawn comparisons to LaDainian Tomlinson, and honestly, it is not unwarranted to say he's following and built in an LT-like mold. Am I going to give him a gold jacket yet? It was just be nice to him. Like, let's just let him get there. It's a lofty goal, but watch him after contact and just overall being crazy elusive as well as working through contact, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I know I went really quick through 3 of the absolute most talented guys in this entire draft class, but I think between the quarterbacks And those three guys on path to the draft, we really covered them so well. So even though the love is well deserved, I want to spread a little bit more love around and give you my 5 favorite players who are going to be first rounders. Let's start with Will Johnson, the cornerback from the University of Michigan, whose dad actually won 3 Big Ten championships at U of M, and he was a two-way star in high school as well. So he's kind of on brand with like the Colorado guys, maybe not quite as like to the level that they are, but he's following the trends here, and he's a good athlete is kind of more what that says. Now, he didn't play the full season in 2024 due to turf toe, so watch the 2023 national championship season if you aren't familiar with him and you want to see how he grows through the season. He's 6'2" and just under 200 pounds. His game speed shows above average change of direction speed and very strong metrics to measure how he finds the shortest distance to the ball. So it's not just like just running straight to the ball, it's turning your hips, finding ball tracking in the air, etc. So it's a little bit more than that. He played outside and in the slot in college, and some scouts will say he has better chances of being successful if he's in a zone-heavy scheme. But I asked several defensive back coaches and defensive coordinators, some of whom interviewed him, and they all agreed that due to his traits like size and instincts, so instincts finding that ball kind of the shortest distance, and also what the film has already shown and how he answered questions when those coaches did film study and interviewed him, they strongly believe that he can adapt to anything asked of him at the NFL level. So this means he could also play man. You knew I was going to pick at least one O-lineman for one of these. And my highest rated offensive lineman per their position, guard Tyler Booker from Alabama. Now, if we're going to argue that defensive tackles are increasing their value, doesn't it follow that interior offensive linemen do too? Anyways, maybe I should be an agent for them. I wrote his sell job here, and it's play gap scheme. Do you have a power runner? Tyler Booker is your guy. I don't know why I wrote an ad, but we're going to go with that. I looked at this big guy class a lot of different ways. Now, I won't go on the full tangent here, but I think one of the unintended consequences of the transfer portal is that O-line evaluation ability suffers greatly. The playbook is thinner, they have less reps together, a lot of other reasons, but I bring this up because no O-lineman was more consistent in this draft class than Booker. And this season, that stat sticks out even more than before. His ability to defend against pass rushers' second efforts, so you try, then you try again, was the best in FBS as well. I know this may not be the most popular opinion, but I was playing around with fits, and the highest rated in a range that makes sense, the Dallas Cowboys. Full disclosure, I went to Boston College, and one of my best friends to this day was a pass rusher who became a Giant and won 2 Super Bowls. I do evaluate players as blindly as possible. An edge rusher, Donovan Ezeraku, who had 16 and a half sacks last season, that's a BC record, obviously flashed in my models. And then I got that nice "aw" when I thought about the coincidence there. It also helps that my NFL evaluator friends who interviewed him said great things about his character. My models, they like his burst. They like how he uses his body to win leverage matches, to get to the quarterback, and his help, as in when he's not on the side or primary path of the play, he ranks above average at getting over and helping out. I had a number of scouts compliment his Euro step, which I don't know why I think that's funny. It is a great Euro step, but I think a lot of that is because he played all of the sports before college. He even did things like throw the discus, etc. So he's got great body control, and I think that's why he has such a great Euro step. Speaking of body control, Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, is best described as a weapon all over the defense. As a pass rusher, off-ball linebacker, spy, edge setter against the run, you name it, he has done it, and he has done it at Georgia, no less. If I just measure him against off-ball linebackers, his change of direction speed is in the 93rd percentile, so basically top rated, and that's a 10-season sample that I'm pulling that from. And then when I measure his burst among pass rushers who lined up where he did pre-snap, just the top 90th percentile, so also top rated there as well. And last, but certainly not least, is Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina. Now, let's refine his position for a minute. Either a strong safety or a big nickel is where he forecasts best. I point this out because Emanwari is a physical specimen freak. He's just the second player since 2003 to be at least 6 feet 3 inches tall, run a sub 4.4 40, have at least a 40-inch vertical, and have an over 11-foot broad jump. Do you know who the other one is? Yeah, it's DK Metcalf. Now, if you look at Emanwari, he had a 43-inch vert, 11-foot 6-inch broad jump, ran his 40 in 4.38. And as a reminder, he's just over 6 feet 3 inches tall and 220 pounds. He is a versatile chess piece. As a reminder, last season, he also had 88 tackles in the run game. 3 were tackles for a loss and 4 interceptions. 2 of them were pick sixes. I'm sure you've heard it by now, but it is still pretty fun that this is the first year in the common draft era that all 32 teams had possession of their first round pick at the start of the league year. Remember, that was back in March. As of right now, and if no first round picks are traded prior to April 24th, it will be the first time since 2014 that no first round picks in the upcoming draft were traded between the start of the league year and the first night of the draft. Over the last 15 years, the first team to trade up and make a pick on the day of the first round has drafted an offensive player 12 times, so 12 of the 15 times. This helps inform my model's outcome of 5 trades forecast for round 1 this year. Last year, we had 5 first-round trades. There were 6 in 23, and we saw 9 in 2022, and that was the record. Right now, the odds makers put the line at 5.5 trades, and again, my math has fewer than that forecast. Most likely outcome, 5. Which leads me into my 5 first-round finds for Thursday. In other words, 5 action items for us to track together, or you to take action on your own and we can track together, however you want to do this. But all of these are happening on Thursday. Action item 1, let's create a recipe of 6 first rounders. So all 6 will have to make it in the first round. So I already gave you my favorite 5 first rounders. You can package all of them together, or you can create combinations using those high probability guys, the chalky 4, Ward, Hunter, Carter, and Jeanty. Find the combination and the risk profile that works for you. You can also create recipes for success with this whole list, so the guys that I'm going to mention in the subsequent action items. But my favorite mix of 6 is adding my 5, so Johnson, Booker, Ezeraku, Walker, and Imanwari, to one of the guys in action item 2. But remember, I like things spicy. If you want to keep it bland/less risky, use more of the Ward, Hunter, Carter, and Jeanty blend to your mix of 6. Action item number 2. 3 guys we've maybe overlooked that have great odds of being first round picks. Number 1, Mason Taylor, the tight end from LSU. Number 2, Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from the University of Michigan. And number 3, Donovan Jackson, the offensive lineman from Ohio State. Action item number 3. How about adding 3 guys who aren't the chalky 4 that are very likely to be top 10 picks? So we're basically trying to call our shot for 7 of the total top 10. What could possibly go wrong here? Okay, let's add Mason Graham from Michigan, the defensive tackle. Let's add Armand Membu, the offensive tackle from Missouri. And then let's throw in Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. So now we got 7. Chalky 4 and those 3 guys. You know what? We could even add maybe even one more. Let's go Will Campbell from LSU. We've got 8 of the top 10. We're calling our shot for sure. Action item 4. Let's do 3 more position total tallies for round 1. I already told you that I like 3 quarterbacks to go, so let's set that aside and add to it. My math says we get 4 cornerbacks. So I'm taking Travis Hunter out of this, and that's what odds makers are doing, so that's pretty consistent. So that means 4 more in addition to Travis Hunter. I also have only 2 running backs going, so Ashton, Jeanty, and UNC's Omarion Hampton. And the last one, at least 9 total defensive linemen. So you add the defensive tackles and the edge rushers together. That's crazy. 9 seems very low. And by the way, I have James Pierce Jr. falling to the second round. Action item 5. 3 things I've heard based on good authority. So these are smart people who have connections. They understand what's going on. They really have their ear to the ground. They know what's going on. Maybe they are the decision maker themselves, not necessarily for the specific team that we're talking about, but they know what's going on. So you can put some smart risk on based on these credible assertions. Number 1, Matthew Golden from Texas as the first wide receiver taken. I personally have Ted McMillan as my number 1 receiver. Better odds of him doing it, but Golden Star has been rising since the combine. And there have been a lot of links to the Cowboys. So that could be an interesting one, and you get good value, good upside there. Second, the Bears, they're picking at number 10. Right now, the favorite in terms of which position they're going to pick is tight end. However, it would be smart to at least consider the pivot to offensive line. If you look at what's going on with their beat writers, the people who are most intimately associated with the team, they have switched to tight end in their mock drafts. Not saying that that's the end all be all, but it is a smart opportunity to kind of read the tea leaves in that regard. And you can go look at their mock drafts yourself so you can see. But ultimately, I think that would be a very smart decision for Ben Johnson, who's trying to figure out what the problem is. How do we best support Caleb Williams? They did a really nice job of addressing the interior O-line. Perhaps they add to it as well. It's smart upside. It's possible they still take a tight end, but the upside is absolutely there. And third, along those same lines, the total number of offensive linemen to be drafted in round 1, at least 7. That one is the one my model has the highest probability of hitting of all of the 3 that I just mentioned. Obviously, I like that, but ultimately that one's the one with the highest probability. Let's round this episode out with 5 final notes that are likely for Friday. Number 1, 2 Notre Dame defensive backs are going to make 2 teams really happy, most likely in the second round. Corner Benjamin Morrison and safety Xavier Watts are who I am referring to. Morrison would have been a first rounder most likely had he not gotten hurt in October. He's an outside corner. His man potential is extremely high. This obviously assumes that he's healthy. This guy is incredible, and he interviewed very well. Xavier Watts paced college football with 7 interceptions 2 seasons ago. He added 6 more in 2024. He's a former receiver. I love that kind of mix. It's very on brand for this whole draft. And he's a ball hawk that gets into position to pick off the ball in part due to his ability to react when the ball is snapped and accelerate when the ball is in front of him. That's a very cool trait, and his resume shows man coverage is a strength. Number 2, 2 Ohio State running backs could basically shape the entire second round. Big time brass, so Sean Payton and Brett Veach, they said in their pressers over the past couple of weeks how they really like this running back class and they want to focus on it. It's a priority for them. Also, the Browns, the Steelers, the Raiders, there's a lot of teams that could really use their services. And remember, you got a guy in Chip Kelly over in the Raiders who just came from being the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, so maybe there's a little something there. Anyways, my colleague Daniel Jeremiah, he has 15 running backs in his top 150, and DJ is awesome. I think these 2 in particular have a bunch of fans who are decision makers, and they could cause some trades. Number 3, if you don't know Jack Beck's story, go read it. The receiver from TCU endured his brother passing away in the terrorist attack in New Orleans in January and somehow managed to maintain his laser focus during the entire draft process. I have yet to meet a single NFL person who doesn't mention how he absolutely crushed everything, physically, emotionally, all of the things you need to do, all of the mentals that go along with it. He did all of it so well. And if you're an Eagles fan, the team flew his brother's best friend and Princeton teammate, who was also a victim of the attack, along with family members to New Orleans and treated them to a very special Super Bowl experience, including the game, and then they won. Thank you so much for your patience with me as we figure out how to grow and evolve Numbers Game. This show and the community that we're building, it means so much to me. And I'm trying to take these next steps very seriously and very mindfully so we can put together the best next version of the show. So stay tuned. And also, don't hold back. If you have any comments, suggestions, feedback, let me know. What would you like to see? I would love, there's some things I would love. Like I would love to be able to show highlights. Those are expensive. We're figuring it out though. We're on it. Mostly, thank you for hanging out. My business partner in this venture is going to be getting married in 2 Saturdays. So we have to take some time to celebrate 2 of the coolest people that I am lucky enough to know. And we won't have a show next week. I don't think. Maybe I'll get brave and do that live stream thing. I don't know. It seems a little scary. We'll see. Let's just plan on resetting the table the week after that, which will also likely be the schedule release. And you know what that means? That means it's our first crack at win totals. Enjoy the draft and the fact that every team has a fresh start now. Everyone can win the Super Bowl. If you like the show, and I really hope that you do, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and pass it along so we can continue to grow.